Today, we're going to talk about something called Integrated Process Excellence, or IPE for short. And I know, it sounds a little corporate jargony, but stick with me, because this idea might just be the key to understanding why your job can be so frustrating sometimes, and more importantly, how to fix it.
I mean, you've been there, right? We all have. You make a totally simple request, you shoot off an email, you kick off what should be a straightforward project, and then crickets. You wait. And you wait. But what if the problem isn't the people? What if it's not that your coworkers are slow, but that the system you're all working in is fundamentally broken? So this one sentence right here, this is the key that unlocks this entire explainer. It was said to a manager, a guy named John Katchat. See, all he wanted was a new computer. A simple request, he thought, but weeks went by with nothing. He was convinced the purchasing department was just a massive bottleneck. Turns out, he was completely wrong.
Because you see, this story isn't actually about a computer at all. It's about the invisible walls that exist between departments. We call them functional silos. And John thought his request was simple, but for the folks in purchasing, it was like being handed a puzzle with half the pieces missing. They couldn't move. And that's where the delay was really coming from.
Yeah, that whole computer story is the perfect example of the biggest problem plaguing most companies, these functional silos. You've got purchasing, you've got engineering, you've got sales, and they all have their own goals, their own metrics, their own little worlds. Everyone's working really hard for sure, but they have basically zero idea what the other departments are doing or what they actually need to get their own jobs done.
We all know this diagram, right? The classic organizational chart. It's this nice, neat, vertical picture of the company. It shows you who reports to who's the boss. It clarifies authority. But it has one giant, massive blind spot. It tells you absolutely nothing about how work actually gets from A to B.
And right here, this is the fundamental problem. The org chart is vertical, right? Top down. But the real work, the stuff that actually creates value for a customer, that flow is horizontal. Think about a process like quote to cash. It has to slice right through sales and then engineering and then production. But we manage the vertical boxes, not the horizontal flow, and that's where everything grinds to a halt.
Okay, so this brings us to the big idea behind IPE. It's really about a fundamental shift in how we look at our organizations. It's about moving our focus away from the individual departments and onto the complete end-to-end process that actually serves the customer.
And this new way of seeing things, it's called process orientation. So instead of asking who's in charge of the sales department, we start asking, how do we work together to turn a customer inquiry into a delivered product? It's all about seeing the connections, how everything has to link up to create that final, valuable thing for the customer.
All right, so let's get into the specifics. Let's put IPE head-to-head with the traditional way of managing a company. Because when you see them side by side, the differences are, well, they're pretty huge.
First up, how we make decisions. Traditionally, it's all about gut feel, right? Experience, intuition, or just whatever the highest paid person in the room thinks. But in an IPE world, every single decision is backed up by data. It's about understanding cause and effect. Opinions are out, facts are in.
And how about quality? You know the old way? You build the whole thing, and then at the very end, a quality department comes in and looks for mistakes. It's totally reactive. IPE flips that on its head. Quality isn't something you inspect at the end. It's something you design into the process from the very beginning. Every single person owns the quality of their own work.
The role of a leader completely changes too. A traditional manager is kind of like a referee. They set the goals, they make sure you follow the rules. But an IPE leader, they're more like a coach. Their job is to make the system better, to get rid of the roadblocks that are slowing you down, and to give the team everything they need to win.
Now, get ready for what might be the single most powerful, most important idea in this entire explainer. We're going to talk about the difference between responsibility and accountability. They sound like the same thing, but trust me, they are worlds apart.
So responsibility is about doing your tasks. I'll do my part, and you can share responsibility across a whole team. But accountability? Accountability is about owning the final result. It can't be shared. One person, and only one person, is ultimately on the hook for the outcome, whether it's good or bad.
And this quote just nails the problem, doesn't it? In most companies, everyone is super busy being responsible. They've got their heads down, they're checking their boxes, they're doing their part. But if no one person is accountable for that entire end-to-end process, stuff is guaranteed to fall through the cracks. And that, my friends, is how a simple computer order takes weeks.
So what does this look like in the real world? Well, when you have tons of responsibility but no clear accountability, you get these classic symptoms. You see people working incredibly hard, just spinning their wheels, but the final results never seem to get any better. Meetings become these long sessions for explaining why a metric is red instead of figuring out how to fix the problem. And of course, finger-pointing becomes the unofficial company sport.
So, how do we fix all this? Well, it all comes down to a really simple but profound metaphor. An IPE leader understands that their job isn't just to watch the results, it's to manage the system that creates those results.
Think about it this way. Traditional management is obsessed with the scoreboard. They're glued to the dashboards with all the red and green lights, but that's a lagging indicator. By the time you see the score, the play is already over. You're just reacting to what's already happened.
But an IP leader? They're focused on managing the game itself. They're on the field with the team, improving their skills, calling better plays, and focusing on the process that will actually lead to a win. They're managing the cause, not just staring at the effect. It's proactive, not reactive.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? If you only make people accountable for results, they get really, really good at explaining why things went wrong after the fact. But if you make them accountable for the process, they learn how to build a system that wins again and again. One approach is stuck looking in the rearview mirror. The other is building the future.
So I'll just leave you with this question to take back to your own team. Take a hard look at your meetings, your reports, your metrics. Are you just managing the scoreboard, or are you actually learning how to win the game?